From the heart of Sacramento, where the crown stays on and the lights go off, this is the Sac Blackout Podcast. No filters, no limits, just straight raw talk. We're bringing you everything sports, music, culture, and the real conversations they don't want you to have. So when the lights go out, you already know what time it is. Sac Blackout Podcast. Welcome to the Sac Blackout Podcast, where we cut through the noise, kill the fake hype, and get straight to what's real about Raider Nation. Today, we're talking OTAs, maybe some expectations, who looked good, and who may or may not have showed up and for whatever reason. Unfortunately, we do not have Raider Chavez here with us today, but I will be hosting Wyatt Reddick. What's going on, Wyatt?
Yeah, nothing much. How about yourself?
Oh, man, hanging in there. Memorial Day, had some food, hung out with the family. Did everything that we had. Everything good with you today or what?
Yeah, it's been a chill run-of-the-mill day for me.
Yeah, did you get anything to eat?
Oh, yeah, we just grilled some burgers outside earlier, but nothing too crazy.
Nothing too crazy.
Yeah.
Always just kept it simple.
Yeah.
All right, so getting into the OTAs, last season felt like a team trying to figure itself out while the season was already moving. There was energy, there was emotion, and but there wasn't always a clear direction. This year, it feels like the Raiders are trying to build something more organized, more disciplined, and more connected from the front office to the coaching staff to the players that are on the field. So the question is that are we finally seeing a real plan take place with our players in the OTA?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think when you look at the coaching tree they put together with Kubiak and company, I mean, you look at it, everybody has ties towards one another, towards each other. They've all worked together or at least most of the position group coaches have worked together in various, destinations, Seattle, New Orleans, Minnesota, etc. Whereas when you look back at last year, it kind of felt like they took a bunch of, proven coaches, but the fact of the matter was, most of them hadn't even worked together. A lot of them, it was their first time collaborating together. And I think we're going to get into a little bit more, but it was kind of just created for kind of a chaotic, it just didn't work. A chaotic work zone. And I'm hoping this season, everybody's on the same page, it feels like, and hoping for different results, more, united, kind of just, fully put together coaching staff.
Yeah, sort of like too many chefs in the kitchen. That's there were just not too many different recipes putting in there, nobody liking it and all that stuff. So that's kind of like the analogy that I wanted to go with that. Definitely was a chaotic system last year. It didn't seem like anybody was on point. They were putting people in places that didn't make any sense. Not utilizing players like Thornton and Besh. I mean, there was a reason why they hired them, or they drafted those players, and they didn't even use. Besh ended up having a handful of catches, and Thornton, even had just even half of that. And then go to show when you go back and look at Jack about it, he actually everything that was thrown at him, he caught pretty much. So and he's a big guy. He's very fast. From what was reported in the OTAs, from some of these reporters that I was checking out, they're saying that Besh actually have a plan for him. So he's going to be utilized a lot more, maybe perhaps, just a quick on the outside. They know that he can be able to cut in on the inside as a slot player, and maybe even get him in some places where he might even have a chance to block, because they say of his size and his speed that he'd be able to do that. So hopefully, from what it looks like this year, it should be able to be more, like I said, more utilizing of the players that they have. Because we had a pretty good roster last year. Everybody looked. Just why not play the guys that they were supposed to play?
Right. Like, we definitely should have won more than what we did last season, just looking at the roster alone. And like you were talking about with Besh, when you take a wide receiver in the second round, that's a pretty high draft pick, you know what I mean? And for that type of draft pick to be being utilized that little on a team that already lacked wide receiver depth, especially post, Jacoby Myers trade. And yeah, like you said, Jack Besh, blocking was one of his hallmarks coming out of the draft, like blocking. And I think that's going to play a very pivotal role in this Kubiak offense, because with the blocking scheme that they're going to run with the, the zone blocking, it's going to be an all hands on deck type of approach. And I feel like, kind of opening up that run game is going to really unlock everything. And and then obviously that's just running the ball blocking wise, in which, Besh in the pass game, he had very reliable hands last season in the limited, target share he got. So I'm hoping here he's going to be used more frequently, as well as, Thornton as well. And then, Trey Tucker and Jalen Naylor.
So that with that, how do you feel about this? Is the coaching staff here to develop young players, win right now, or clean up the mess from the last regime?
I think it's two of those things. I think it's kind of cleaning up the mess, but also building towards the future, because obviously, Kubiak knows what type of mess he was inheriting when he signed up to be the head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, it's no secret that the Raiders, they got the number one pick for a reason last year. They were the worst team in football at the end of the day. Even though it didn't feel like it on paper, they were literally the worst team on the football field in the entire NFL last season. That's why they had the worst record. And so I think Kubiak kind of knows that coming in. And it's also kind of a new challenge for him. I mean, he just had the highest level of success that an offensive coordinator can possibly have with the Seattle Seahawks winning the Super Bowl. And he wants to, kind of challenge himself. And also, it's a promotion for him. I mean, he's the head coach of the Raiders now. He can kind of run his show, put his scheme into play. And I think that with that in mind, they're also kind of, they're building a long runway for this team. They're not, Mark Davis isn't expecting them to, be Super Bowl contenders right away, as much as he would like them to be. But these kind of things, like they say, Rome wasn't built overnight. Like, it's going to take some time to kind of, build things together. And I think they did a very good job so far, at least with Spytek in the draft and in free agency, of putting those talented pieces together. And it's just a matter of time before Kubiak can kind of get these guys to gel together as one.
Yeah, and a lot of interviewing with the Coach Kubiak, when they were asking him like, how is everybody doing with on the team, and he pretty much keeps everything pretty much straightforward, a little bit vague. He's like, hey, guys are here, they're competing. They don't really give too much, insight on one particular player. Like, whenever asked about Mendoza, he always says, "Oh yeah, he's great." I think there was a quote that he said that he hasn't disappointed. He's all ball. He's definitely fast when it comes to picking up what's going on. But in the end, he and Spytek always sticks to the same phrase: "We're gonna play the best guy." But even a lot of reports during the OTAs that you have Kirk Cousins that's leading the helm with all of the first team snaps. Then you have Aiden O'Connell that's right behind him, with some of the first team snaps, and then you have Mendoza that's practicing with the rookies. But there has been some reports that Mendoza has been throwing some first team snaps as well. But still, they're saying it's a really good competition out there, and they're not going to be slacking on anybody or trying to give anybody. Kubiak is not going to be giving any favoritism to any one singular player, from what I'm hearing out of the OTAs.
And that's like a complete 180 from last season. I mean, I felt like last year they were saying that the best guy was going to play, but that's not really necessarily how it felt, with, Pete Carroll's the coach. I mean, not blaming everything on him, but it kind of felt like they were like kind of playing his guys. They were kind of playing favoritism in a way, kind of leaving like, younger guards, Caleb Rogers and Charles Grant, guys that should have gotten chances earlier on. They didn't get chances until the season had already been written off. So I'm glad that this year it seems like they're kind of sticking to that motto. And at the end of the day, like, whoever deserves to play should play, whoever's best fit for the position, regardless of how close they are, how high up they are on whoever's list. Like, that, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, like, they want to see the best product on the field.
Oh yeah. And last year with all that, with so much dysfunction and, miscommunication or discommunication, if you want to even use that as a word, there was really no direction that the team had. I don't even think they really had an identity going into even midseason. No. I'll even go as far to say, and this is just my opinion on saying it, I mean, I'm going to start some shit with it, but I'm thinking the reason because of all that dismay going on and such miscommunication going on with that's probably the reason why some of our key players ended up getting hurt. Colton Miller ended up getting hurt the way he did because they had him in a position that he probably shouldn't have even been in, or it wasn't even running the plays. There was a report that they had players during the time where they were just confused. Like I think they had a hot mic where there was a player that went up to another player and asked him like, "What was that?" Like that wasn't what we were supposed to be playing, or like they didn't know. And a lot of times there was even stuff said that when it came down to game time, that Chip Kelly would flip the script and just start running plays that they didn't even practice during the week. So it was like, and so I'm gonna go, like I said, I'm gonna go as far as to say with all that dismay that was going on, that's probably why some of our players got hurt because they just weren't on page with what they were supposed to be reading. So it's this year definitely seems like we have a smarter, more in tune, more adult and mature like identity with coaching, because not only do we have new players that are drafted in young, but we have older players that are returning that are going to get their chance to be able to do it. Like I said, you got Besh, you got Thornton, you got Colton that's healthy now and he looks good. He's out there banging. There's some videos that are out there that you can watch, whether it be on YouTube or even on X, where they're showing a lot of the, even on the Raiders website, that you can be able to see a lot of the OTA recordings, and they're looking pretty good out there, man. They're looking really good. All right, so going into some more talk about how everything is going to be working out with the team and being ready to go. How well do you see this team pretty much getting it together by the time game one comes around?
Yeah, I mean, I think training camp is going to be very, pivotal for the Raiders, as is with every other team. But specifically, when a team gets a new head coach, they want to, implement their new identity. And there's been all the talks about, Kubiak. He's saying that players, everybody starts out without a logo on their helmet, and they need to, put in the work and earn it, earn the shield on their helmet. So I think that's going to kind of, it starts out day one, nobody has a shield on their helmet. And then by the time the week one comes around, all the starters will have shields in their helmets and the reserves that are primed to come in. So I think training camp is going to be vital for the Raiders. And I mean, that's basically it with that.
And you don't think in any kind of way that that's kind of maybe down, I don't know, kind of just maybe looking down on the players a little bit, whether they're veterans or not, to like make everyone kind of earn that shield. You're okay with that concept?
Yeah, I think it kind of shows what type of tone the Kubiak is trying to set. I mean, he kind of seems like a no BS type of coach. That's the kind of motto he's trying to put down. Because last year, I mean, the opposite with Pete Carroll was to be said. It was kind of more like honor the players, kind of just letting them kind of do themselves, which they should be able to handle themselves. They're professional athletes, but with the tone that Kubiak is trying to set, I can appreciate it where he's coming from, because I feel like the Raiders haven't had a coach like this in quite some time. With Josh McDaniels, I mean, he was kind of that strict kind of coach as well, but that didn't work for obvious reasons, other reasons really. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I like where he's going with it, and then he's also praised his players as well. Like a quote that he said about Brock Bowers was he described him as a football robot from heaven. So I think that he's really going to lean on Bowers heavily. I mean, that's an obvious statement, but with the state of the wide receiver room, I think that they kind of project Bowers as that wide receiver one archetype in the Kubiak offense, even though he's not technically a wide receiver. He is probably the best receiving tight end in the National Football League. So I think that there's going to be a lot of Bowers usage. This will probably be his career season. And then as well as Ashton Jeanty, Kubiak has also verbally stated that he wants to challenge Jeanty and, eventually Jeanty, for him to earn a massive workload, despite the additions of fourth-round pick Mike Washington Jr. and Hemby as well, coming over as an undrafted free agent from Indiana. He's also probably going to be in the mix a little bit as well, assuming he beats out Dylan Lobb in training camp. But so I think kind of, praising Jeanty and Bowers. I mean, those two guys are probably the most special talents on the team in terms of offensive playmakers. So all in all, I think Kubiak's definitely doing a good job in terms of what he's trying to do as the coach.
Yeah, he's going to definitely look at their strong points and what they got going on for them. He's not going to tell Genty he can't do anything. I mean, Genty even said it himself. He said that he doesn't even want to come off the field. So if he thinks that Kubiak saying, "Oh, we're gonna put a lot of pressure on him," and that he's not scared of it. He even said it himself. Genty even said it himself. He wants that pressure. He said if he doesn't have to, he said he won't ever come off the field. He'll stay out there. He'll ball it out and do what he has to do. With the addition of Himby and Washington, I mean, it just opens up a ton. I mean, everything is definitely set in place for Genty to succeed. I mean, look what he did last year with the line that they had, and the organization that they had last year. He was still able to put up many yards and get a bunch of touchdowns with that, and he's good with the catching. So even if Washington and Hemby end up, running it a lot more, which I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they were given more plays to run, but I think a lot of success is going to come from a lot more success is going to come from Genty being able to come out of the backfield like that and be able to catch that ball and run it out there, especially when he's learning what I think it was a Herschel Walker, or who was it that he was studying? I know it was a what's his name from the 49ers. I don't know why I'm such a loss for names right now, but that he's studying their moves and how they run up the middle and everything else. So Genty he's learning a lot more than what he already knew coming into the season last year as a rookie. I don't see him not succeeding at all. I think the dude is going to, if I wouldn't go as loud as to say that he's going to double his numbers, but I know he is definitely going to surpass the numbers that he had last year with this line that we got, with Bowers being able to get up into the middle and be that tight end that Kirk Cousins is actually looking forward to playing with. And with the wide receivers that we got, being able to get Thornton out there, Besh out there, Naylor's going to be doing this thing, Tucker. I mean, we are stacked with wide receivers, and we just need to be sure that our quarterbacks are going to be able to get the ball out there to them. And it doesn't seem like they'll have a problem doing that. All right. So are they going to be a physical zone running play action team? Do you think that that's what the Raiders are most likely going to be under this Kubiak system?
Oh yeah, the Raiders are definitely going to be a physical zone running play action scheme type of offense. I mean, that's basically what Kubiak stated day one. I mean, he wants to kind of reinvent the running game here in Las Vegas. And when you're able to, we've been saying this time and time again, but when you're able to, kind of establish the run game, it opens up everything else. And just looking back at every other pitch stop that Kubiak's made as an offensive play caller, he's implemented that wide zone running scheme. And that's just kind of the hallmark of Kubiak football. And in terms of getting Genty the ball more, Bowers the ball more, like that was kind of something that the Raiders struggled to do last season, getting their best playmakers the ball in space. So this year, I think what separates good play callers from great play callers is the great ones are able to get their best players the ball frequently in advantageous positions of the field. And I think that's what Kubiak's ultimate goal is with, guys like Genty, Bowers, and then even, wide receivers coming into the fold as well. Jack Besh showing what he's capable of. Jalen Naylor as well. I think Jalen Naylor is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the league. And then Trey Tucker's proven he's a solid receiver as well. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, obviously when you look at the depth chart, the wide receiver room doesn't jump out at you, but when you kind of look at, Brock Bowers, you kind of assume that he's also kind of part of that receiving mix. And then you look at the upside with guys like Naylor and Besh. It definitely is hopefully going to be formidable for the Raiders this year.
So knowing what you know with the Kubiak system, and let's just say everybody, like, this is game one, we're ready to start. These are our starters. This is everybody that's going to be in there. Genty, Bowers, Naylor. Let's say Besh is going to be in there. Trey Tucker. Washington's going to be, eventually in the back with Genty. Who, in your opinion, with this system would benefit more?
In terms of like the receivers?
And in terms of like, who does it benefit more? Does it benefit more of the running game? Does it benefit more of the passing game? Who is like more likely to succeed in this system, in your opinion?
Oh, 100% the running game. I think the running game is going to be the biggest beneficiary of Kubiak coming over. I mean, he loves to run the football. I mean, that's when Seattle, when they went on their Super Bowl run, that was their hallmark. They were just running the ball as much as they possibly could, tiring down opposing defenses. And when you're able to run the ball well, you can kind of keep the other team's offense off of the football field, run down the clock, wear down the opponent's defense, and additionally give your defense additional rest. So I think Kubiak, that's definitely what he wants to do. He wants to run the ball a lot, and they've really beefed up that running back depth in the running back room behind Genty. We know Genty. We know what he's capable of. Yeah. And Mike Washington, I think he's kind of getting overlooked. I mean, he could have been a starting running back depending on where he landed. He just so happened to get drafted by a team that already took, Ashton Genty with the number 6 overall pick last year.
Right.
But Washington, when he touches the ball, he's gonna show us why the Raiders took him in the 4th round. And if Genty were to ever go down, I still think the running back room has enough depth between Mike Washington and Hemby as well to kind of round out that offensive production.
Yeah, but let's hope the Genty doesn't get hurt, man. Let's take out that voodoo real quick, man. It's like,
we don't. But like, if it were to happen,
we don't need that juju, man.
More than prepared.
But it's definitely it's a good way to look at it. Being prepared, being able to get all these players that they got, and good quality players, and that's what I like about this year's draft. I think that we picked the players that are going to be fit for the system with the Kubiak system. And I just don't see us, obviously, going as far as saying that we're going to have a 10-win season is very far-fetched. Anything more than what we did last season is going to be great. Let's get away from that, maybe that 25 ranking area when it comes to, allowing defenses to sack us, or even, allowing running offenses to get past our line. Because that's, I think, well, with the defense too, I think that's probably where a lot because we kept up a lot in the secondary, but after a while, it's like when you're getting beat up on the run, and these secondary guys have to come up and handle those tackles as well. It's going to wear us down, and we've seen that a lot going on last season. We'd start off strong, everything was going good. You're like, oh, okay, this is great. We either were scoring first or we would come back, but then middle of third quarter, as soon as fourth quarter starts, it's like, we just deflate. And who knows what it was. I mean, was it because of fatigue? Was it because of the miscommunication with the coaches? We don't know, but this year seems a hell of a lot better, a little bit more intelligent, a little bit more strict, with, obviously with Kubiak being that, oh, we're going to make sure that you guys earn your badge. It's definitely a different feel and a different identity this year than it was compared to last year. All right. Okay, I don't think I got any more on that. Okay, so here's a question for you. What would prove early that this staff is different? Better discipline, better offense rhythm, fewer penalties, stronger halftime adjustments, or better player development?
I mean, all of those really. A big one for me is less turnovers on offense. I want to see cleaner football on the offensive side. And I mean, last season, you can't really win games when you're throwing 2 to 3 picks a game. And then the special teams as well. I mean, the special teams was fumbling it here left and right. I mean, they were letting opponent kick returners score touchdowns at what felt like all-time high rates. And I feel like that would kind of just show more of a refined kind of approach, whereas like the coaching staff, they're kind of making the football team more refined in general, like less turnovers allowed on offense, more turnovers on defense, which also is a thing that they didn't really do too much last year. I mean, I think they were middle of the pack in that, but just, I want to see the turnover differential kind of stabilize. I think that would kind of show they're being better coached than they were last year.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's definitely good expectations and stuff like that. I mean, we the bottom line, we want to get better. We want to feel better. We want to look better. And it's definitely, it's absolutely imperative that when this team comes out, game one, whether it's whoever it is that they're going to have out there as their starting wide receiver, or their starting quarterback, we just want to see a difference in the chemistry and the identity and overall coaching when it comes to this year. So we're looking forward to that.
And then also in terms of offense, I want to see longer offensive drives, like more time in the offensive zone of the football. Whereas, because I felt like last year there were multiple occasions every game it felt like where the defense would they'd produce a 3-and-out, and the opponent would kick the ball back to our offense, and then we would either go 3-and-out ourselves at least 75% of the time, or we'd throw a pick, get fumbled somehow. And I feel like if we can kind of control the football and game clock on offense, that'll kind of help everything kind of round out.
Yeah, there were a few questions that I had asked in regards to that. Are they finally going to stretch out the field with with their wide receivers? With who we got now, backing up Ashton. Is the run game going to set the tone? But then, more importantly, with those two questions, can they finish the drives when it comes down to it and when it matters? That's really what we're hoping for, because like you said last year. Because like you said, last year it was just they weren't able to finish a lot of the drives. They the defenses just weren't able to completely stop. It seemed like they were just making mistakes. So we're looking for a more, like I said, more organized offense and defense when it comes to that. Do you think that like what would you like to see more? I mean, would you like to see them stretch the field out with the wide receivers throwing the ball deep or anything, or just or do you want to see a more ground game control?
I just want to see more control personally. I don't think you're able to really stretch the field until you can show defenses that you can regularly control the football. I mean, in terms of the run game and the short passing game, shorter routes at least. And last year they weren't really able to do that. So I think this year, once they can kind of start establishing the run, picking up offensive first downs left and right, then you can kind of things will start opening up down the field where you can start hooking up with Trey Tucker for 40-yard touchdowns, kind of unlock Deontay Thornton, stuff like that. And I think that's just kind of the key to the offense. If they can show they can consistently move the chains, that'll open things up downfield.
So what does success look like this year? If they're not going to be a playoff team, more wins, a clear identity, better quarterback play, or a tougher locker room?
Yeah, I think just clear. Wait, my bad. Wait, what? Can you?
Oh, so here I'll ask you. So what does success look like this year if they are not a playoff team yet? More wins, clear identity, better quarterback play, or a tougher locker room?
Clearer identity, I think, is going to be the thing that I'm looking for the most, because you're not going to be able to get these wins until you can prove that you have an identity. And last year the Raiders didn't really have an identity. So this year, I think if they can kind of prove that they can run the ball, they can prove they can play good defense, which I do think that they were able to do a bit last year, and they can kind of build on that because they have a lot of the same guys that they had from last year and a lot of upgrades as well. So I'm really excited to see the defense kind of build off the momentum that they were playing with last year. And then the offense kind of just instill some of Kubiak's play designing and stuff that he can bring over from Seattle. And it'll kind of prove in the quarterback's play, whoever the best man is for the job between Cousins and Mendoza. I think it's going to kind of make the offense more fluid. And I think that alone, once we get that new identity, we instill a new identity, that'll translate to wins, and everything else will kind of follow suit.
Well, the identity definitely looks like it's going to be a hell of a lot better and prettier this year. I mean, we got a good coach in Kubiak. He was able to get his guy from the coordinator position all the way up to the so now he's up in the booth. And then we got Mike Sullivan, who is now the offensive coordinator, who has he has to, like I said, he has 20 plus years. He's worked with Eli Manning, Ben Roethlisberger. He made Kenny Pickett look good. And not only with that, but when he there was a year, I think Eli Manning, I think it was back in like 2016 or something like that I had reported on, and he threw for over 4,000 yards. Um, then he ended up throwing another 4,000 yards with Mike Sullivan as the quarterback's coach in that. And it was in that year too. I think that Odell Beckham Jr. I think caught like somewhere because of that, like somewhere around like 1,300 yards. And I believe they went to the Super Bowl. When they went to the Super Bowl, that Eli Manning was the MVP, and that was under Mike Sullivan as a quarterback's coach. So, and he also has ties with Kubiak when they were when they were coaching assistants in Denver. So we have a winning structure, with coaches. I really feel good about the way that they're going to approach this. Their offense is looking good, and I think maybe in the next episode that we end up shooting, we might have to go a little bit more in depth with the defense, because we seem to be covering a lot of the offense right now, and that's awesome. So,
yeah, I feel like the offense brings up a lot of talking points because of how bad it was last year, and we're going to talk about the offensive line a little more as this video continues. But
yeah,
they allowed a league high sack rate. So how can they turn that around, and just kind of find more offensive success? I feel like it's a super interesting thing going into training camp and later on into the season.
So then going back to the identity, and I'm going to ask this on my own. With everything that we got, with the wide receivers that we got, the playing scheme that the Raiders have, obviously the running backs we got, the line that we have, is the identity going to be able to be proven? I mean, will we just be a running team, or will that kind of play action running scheme turn into a good passing game? It's like I don't really know if maybe like the identity is to not have an identity this year, but it's still like I don't know. Like what do you think about that? Like, is there really an identity that's going to be proven or kind of looked at?
Yeah, I mean, once we can start running the ball consistently, and that might even start week one, once we can show Genty, kind of get him into space, it'll kind of open up things for the pass game. And once we can do that, going into each game, week in, week out, we can kind of mix it up. Like we start out with a lot of, aggressive passing downfield. And then we go to the run game, or we can start out with the run game, wear out the defense, and then start opening with a pass, or just kind of mix, both in at the same time. I think that's going to kind of show. I think it all comes down to the creativity that Kubiak has as the play caller, Janoko as well being the offensive coordinator. And I think those two together are going to work together and put together a very creative offense that will keep defenses on their heels throughout the season and most importantly, get the ball to the playmakers in space. And, that'll kind of be dependent on the quarterback's play, whether it's Cousins or Mendoza, to be able to get the ball to them.
All right, and that's a good segment right there, and a good segue to be able to get into what we're going to talk about, since we're discussing the playoff schemes, or not playoff schemes. I'm sorry, the play schemes, how well that the running game is going to do, and it's really going to be dependent, I'm thinking, on that offensive on that O line. So with that being said, we're going to get into our favorite segment of the show that we like to call
4th and Wyatt.
Trust me, I got this.
And as you know, Wyatt, we definitely trust you, brother. So let's go on ahead and let you have at it and see what we got.
Yeah, so in order for this offense to work, it's going to be highly dependent on the offensive line. And that is the main focal point that Clint Kubiak wants to implement in this offense. He wants to get that zone blocking scheme tried and true. And with that, for that to happen, they hired a new offensive line coach, Rick Dennison. Now, he shares an identical football philosophy to Clint Kubiak. He was the run game coordinator for the 2025 Seattle Seahawks. So he and Kubiak have worked together time and time again. And his objective in OTAs is to test players' lateral quickness and athleticism in order to instill more of an agile system into the offensive line as a whole. Now, the offensive line, as we look at it right now, as projected at left tackle, Colton Miller, nobody's really questioning that. Jackson Powers and Spencer Burford are looking like the starting guards right now in training camp. as Burford has been getting a lot of the first team reps, which is a little bit puzzling to people because some people believe that Caleb Rogers is actually the best guard. I'll get into that a little bit more in a bit. And then DJ Glaze anchoring it down on the right side. And then how could I forget center Tyler Linderbaum, one of the top 3 centers in football. Now, Spencer Burford is interesting because he is a seasoned veteran. And although he's not, an eye-poppingly, Pro Bowl type of player, he's a very highly dependable, experienced offensive lineman. And he has a multitude of experience in wide zone blocking schemes. He's made 38 career NFL starts. And I think that's a big reason why the Raiders brought him in from the Niners, where, he's been with the Niners for a long time. And Kyle Shanahan, he implements the same type of blocking scheme that Clint Kubiak does. So I think that Burford he fits like a glove in this offensive line. And there's a good chance that he does start out with the first team when the season does start, like he's been doing in OTA so far. And Caleb Rogers, he was very good in the small sample size that he was given last year towards the end of the season. So he'll be battling with Burford for that guard position, opposite mirrored of JPJ, whether it's the right side or the left side. My sources are saying it's more so on the left side. And then that also brings up, rookie Trey Zune that they took in the 3rd round. Now he's been getting looks at multiple interior offensive line positions. And Rick Dennison, he's trying to kind of test, Zune's adaptability and kind of, translate that elite pass protection that he had in college and kind of bring it over to the NFL. I think the idea of drafting a guy like Zune with a pretty high draft pick in the 3rd round is to ultimately protect Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback, long-term. And then Charles Grant is another guy that they took last year. He's also been getting a lot of buzz. Like, will he be starting this year? And although I do think he's naturally more of a left tackle fit, and the presumed, replacement for Colton Miller once Colton Miller is, on his way out of the team, which shouldn't be anytime soon. But they're also kind of testing him out at the right tackle position because although DJ Glaze played there last year, Glaze wasn't exactly he's not exactly like, going to get 100% of the snaps at the right tackle position. He's not everyone's sold on him at that right tackle position long-term. So they're kind of trying to see if Charles Grant can kind of get some work into that right tackle position. And they have a multitude of other players to back up the offensive line. And they have much more depth there this season with, Jordan Meredith. He got some snaps at center last year. I think he's more of a guard though. Antonio Mafi as well. And Will Putnam, to name a few of the others. So I think in order for the offense to work and fully operate, the offensive line is going to have to hold it down so that Fernando Mendoza or Clint Kubiak or Kirk Cousins have enough time to throw the ball and scan the field, as well as for the running game to stabilize, which is the most important thing for the Raiders to do.
All right. So with that, that good coverage that you had about that, speaking in terms of Colton Miller, is Colton Miller still a reliable piece on the Raiders offensive line, or is he quietly being asked to prove himself under a new staff?
I think he's still definitely kind of penciled in as that starting left tackle, health permitted. I think the 2 players on the team that, they're not going to admit that they're being penciled in as starters to go into the season. I do think that they're looking at them as starters, and that's Colton Miller at that left tackle position, as well as Tyler Linderbaum, the center. Now, one player that is a bit on the fence, whereas fans, I think pretty much every Raiders fan believes that this player should be starting. That's Jackson Powers Johnson. And although like he is projected to start on every site that you look at, every Raiders depth chart that you look at going into the year, I do think there's quietly being a battle at the guard positions because Caleb Rogers showed that he's a very capable NFL starter in the small sample size that he was given last year at the end of the year when he finally got a chance to showcase his talent and why the Raiders took him relatively high in last year's draft. And then, like I was talking about with Spencer Burford, he's a perfect scheme fit. And it's exactly the type of player that Clint Kubiak wants starting day one in his, offense. So that kind of, where does that leave Jackson Powers? I think Jackson Powers is going to need to prove himself as well, because although we do know that he has some of the most talent on this team, he needs to prove that he can be a good fit in Clint Kubiak's offense and kind of work in this zone running scheme.
Well, so how much does JPJ's versatility help this new coaching staff with the other linemen that we got?
I think it definitely helps mightily. I mean, he obviously has some experience at center, and I actually like the way that he did look at center. But when you bring in Tyler Linderbaum, you expect him to anchor down that center position, health permitted, 100% of the time throughout the season when he's available. So I think that kind of pushes Powers more towards the side. Some sites say left guard or right guard. I believe he can play both. I do feel like he's kind of natural in that right guard position. And then you kind of look at the depth chart, and then you have Burford starting on the other side of the guard. If Caleb Rogers proves himself in camp, I think that he actually has the most upside at that guard position. And there's also been rumblings about how DJ Glaze could fit in at the guard position due to his smaller radius long term. But they're going to expect to need him at the right tackle position because they don't really have much depth at that position on the offensive line. Maybe Charles Grant can kind of mirror his skill set from the left side to the right side at that right tackle position, because when Colton Miller is healthy, I do think Colton Miller is going to start at left tackle. So where does that leave Charles Grant? I'm not sure. I think Charles Grant, Caleb Rogers, and Trey Zune III are the three offensive linemen that we should be keeping an eye on heavily throughout camp as it develops, because all three of them have a lot of upside. And that's why John Spytek took them in the draft.
Yeah, and that right there is going to be able to get, make sure that these guys are going to be competing very well against each other. Obviously they are a team, but for that position, yeah, they definitely have to compete very well. They got to be able to get the schemes down. They got to block right. They will be put in a position to show their skills and, their assets and all that. So I don't think that, that Kubiak is going to put them in a failing position at all. Putting the players exactly where they need to be. Colton Miller is definitely going to be somebody that's is going to be versatile. Jackson Powers, he brings a nasty sort of, rough kind of game, and he should be able to, in some kind of way, bring the Raiders kind of mentality back to the way that it used to be, where it was physical, it was tough, it was, it was very pushing and all that. We want to be able to get back to the way that the Raiders used to be, when they were hard hitting, they weren't. My biggest thing and this is probably going to go more into the defensive portion of it, but is getting physical, being able to wrap around players and be able to take them down on the defense. And when it comes to the offense, being able to get hands up, to push players back. And with the line that we got right now with Buford out there doing what he does, I really think that that's a good addition to be able to pick him up. I'm not sure why they let him go, but we picked him up, and we're going to do everything that we possibly can to put him in a winning position on that.
Yeah. And I think just being physical in the trenches, like you're saying, that's just vital to the success of a football team. If you're physical in the trenches, whether it's offense or defense, it's going to open things up in the secondary on defense. And then for offense, it's going to open up plays that wouldn't be able to happen, honestly, if the offensive line wasn't able to be physical enough to kind of give the quarterback enough time to get the ball out or for a route to develop, which I think was kind of a big issue last year's offense.
All right. Yeah, that's gonna be it for us then on that one, man. Is there anything else that you want to maybe mention or talk about, maybe going into next week?
Yeah, we could probably do it next week. Yeah, I was like, we'll probably do it next week. But I think the battle for nose tackles kind of interesting, and then Jermod McCoy playing a lot in camp because a lot of people thought he was gonna be hurt, and then the Teron Johnson not showing up. I think those three things. That's more of defense, so we could probably just do that next time.
Oh yeah, because dude, I did a piece on on McCoy and looking into a lot of these guys.
That's right. I forgot about that. My bad.
Yeah, I'm definitely ready to be able to talk about him. And these other guys that we got. So yeah, we'll get into that next.
This was kind of like offensive OTAs then, right?
Yeah. We were talking about OTAs, and we just because there was a lot. There's a lot to cover with. We still didn't even really covered a lot more because there's really more to talk about when it comes to the quarterbacks.
We hardly talked
more to talk about the wide receiver. What's that?
We hardly talked about the quarterbacks at all.
Well, let's go on ahead and get into it real quick. We
Oh
got some
shit.
time for it. Yeah, we let's go for it. So talks about Kirk Cousins being out there taking control of the field when he came out there, and this was reported by Q on the Locked On Raiders podcast when he was talking about that. Cousins came out there and was yelling at guys, telling people where to be, where to move, and all that stuff. And he's not yelling at guys like where he's being demanding and all that stuff. He's just being a veteran quarterback, and he was stating that that was something that um, that Mendoza can't do right now. Mendoza coming in, being able to throw the ball, read the plays, do everything that he's doing as a physical and athletic player, is definitely got that down where he's not disappointing. But being able to take control, I mean, that's probably something he's still going to have to build with the other receivers and his other players, especially with his line, because his line, they're going to be his blood. They're going to be the body. They're going to be the ones that are going to protect him. So he's going to need to develop a relationship with them. And but Kirk Cousins is definitely taking the helm. Aiden O'Connell, um, they they're using him, and they are going to eventually get him in there. I think during the preseason, I think is going to show whether or not that he's picking everything up that he's going to do. But in my opinion, I think that at some point that they are just going to run with Kirk Cousins and Mendoza, but they will advertise as much as they possibly can for Aiden. And I wouldn't be surprised if they end up trading him at some point, early in the season before even before the trading block.
Oh, no doubt. Yeah. I mean, I think it definitely comes down to everyone knows that Cousins and Mendoza, I mean, those are the two guys. That's the real battle. And then there's the backup. I mean, I believe they drafted that guy. What was his name? Sawyer Robinson as well later in the draft. I think he was an undrafted free agent, actually. And then, Aiden O'Connell as well, battling out that third spot. And I do think that one of those guys, the guy that doesn't make it, is going to get cut, unfortunately. That's just kind of how the nature of the NFL works for QB battle. I actually did hear one very interesting rumor, and by no way is it like completely like going, I'm saying it's going to happen, but it was actually very interesting to me. And it's that, let's say Fernando Mendoza, right now he's kind of playing behind Cousins in training camp, it sounds like. But let's say Fernando Mendoza ends up winning out the starting quarterback job for the Raiders week one. What if, and this is kind of a rumor that I heard, what if the Raiders were to trade Kirk Cousins for draft capital after that? They could, because there are a lot of teams that could use Kirk Cousins as a starting quarterback. I mean, especially if an injury happens. You look at teams like the Cardinals. I mean, I don't even know, like Jacoby Brissett. Like, there are multiple venues where destinations where Kirk Cousins would be a starting quarterback. And let's say Mendoza is ready to go week one and he is the guy. The Raiders could trade Kirk Cousins for a second or third round pick potentially. I mean, so that's another angle to look at. But I do think that ultimately the Raiders do kind of want to ease Mendoza into things because that's literally what they said. They would prefer for their rookie quarterback to kind of learn from a veteran. And I think that's ultimately what's going to happen. But it's something to keep an eye on, though, because there is a good chance that Mendoza, I mean, not a good chance, but there is a chance that Mendoza does start week one. It's not out of the picture.
I can agree with you on the fact that there's a possibility that Mendoza can start week one, especially if he's picking everything up as fast as he can, and that he is actually from what they're reporting in the OTAs. But I will have to rebuttal against that rumor about it because it would make, with all due respect, it would make no sense to, okay, all of a sudden, yeah, week one or even week two, Mendoza's, he's winning. I would say that the whole reason for his success in being able to do that is by learning from a veteran quarterback such as Kirk Cousins. So getting rid of Kirk Cousins wouldn't make any sense, and then have him back up at some point if he starts doing terrible, and then they throw in Aiden O'Connell in there, and Aiden O'Connell's he's not only not even being able to start, but then he was end up backing up not only Kirk Cousins, but then he's backing up Mendoza. I just don't see that would be a viable thing to do. Getting rid of the whole point of being able to get Cousins in there is to be able to have this veteran guy teach and structure a younger guy in Mendoza. And so the plan is, in my opinion, I think that the plan was the whole time was to be able to get Kirk Cousins in there, to be able to guide him through this whole year and have him ready to be able to start next season, all these other games. Because Kirk Cousins is not going to be there next year. I think he signed the deal that he did. He's only going to be there 1 year, and he'll be gone. But I mean, yeah, we can definitely get a good draft pick for Cousins, but it would not make any sense to get rid of Cousins when he's the one that's supposed to be making sure that he's keeping Mendoza on the up and up as far as learning what he's supposed to learn and adapting to everything that's going on. I don't think that he'll be able to learn that from Aiden O'Connell, being that this is going to be his 4th season, 4 different coordinators, 4 different coaches. You know what I mean? It's like it's there's, I mean, Kirk Cousins obviously worked with a lot of coaches and stuff too, but he's worked with these coaches and he knows what's going on. I just I would have to rebuttal against that rumor, and just have to say that has to be squashed, and because there's no way that I would see them.
Yeah, it probably won't happen, honestly. But I just thought it was interesting when I did hear it, because it was like, wow, like, I mean, that just kind of like, I do believe in Mendoza a lot, and there is a chance that he does start week 1. But yeah, like you said, I mean, Cousins does have that experience with, you know, Kubiak in the past, and he knows the system. But it is something to keep an eye on. Like, they could get additional value, like draft capital going into next year, and that could be a good future move. Maybe this would happen mid-season, would be most realistic. But yeah, it's just gonna be interesting to see how the QB battle kind of shakes out as a whole.
So in the last OTAs, they were talking. There were some reports stating that they are getting equal amount of snaps, and especially when who they're working with. Because like I had said earlier, Kirk Cousins is obviously going to be the one working with the first team. Aiden O'Connell was right behind, being able to work with the first team and working with the secondary as well. But then you had Mendoza, who was working with the third and the rookies. But then I think they said that they actually gave him an opportunity to throw along with Kirk Cousins. So that gives them a good opportunity to be able to see exactly how well each quarterback is doing with the system and how they're able to command the offense. So it's kind of hard, based on a lot of the information that's coming out of the OTAs and a lot of these reports, to really kind of put a good expectation on who the quarterback is going to be coming into week 1. General manager Spytek had stated in one of his interviews that they don't, and this isn't actually word for word, but he went along the lines of saying that they don't really want to put a young quarterback out there, so fresh in the way that, in how young he is and he's developing. So they're leaning more towards Kirk Cousins being the starting quarterback going into week 1. So what I took from that is that Mendoza is picking up a lot of the system, very well, and they have a lot of confidence in him because they are saying that he's picking up everything very fast. But saying that, that he will just start week 1, not just become our starter, you got to read in between the lines, because that really that makes a big statement right there. To just come out and say, well, okay, yeah, he's, Mendoza's not going to be our quarterback for week 1. Okay, well then what about week 2? We're going to look into that. If he would have just came out and said, okay, yeah, he's picking everything up, but we're looking at Kirk Cousins right now of just being our starter, you can be like, damn, okay. And I don't know if I'm just looking into it, trying to read into it too much, but what I took from that is that even though that they just want to be sure that they're just not going to just throw Mendoza out there, maybe week 2. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll ball out, it'll go lights out, and we'll get into like the 4th quarter and they just throw in Mendoza because we're winning by so many points. That's just to go to say that we're going to handle, Miami when they come in. So and then on top of that too, it's good that they're giving these guys the equal amount of snaps, because of what I'm hearing around the league with other quarterbacks, particularly that of the Browns. Deshaun Watson, they were saying that one of their, I don't know if it was which one of their coaches were talking about it, but he was very, very disappointed, almost irate about the fact that he's all, I don't care if we're playing 7-on-7, 8-on-8, 9-on-9. There was just too many interceptions during the OTAs. Nobody's touching each other. Nobody's getting tackled. There's no hard hits or nothing like that. And they're still throwing interceptions. I guess they had Deshaun Watson. I guess he took a majority of the snaps. And I think he had somewhere like 17 or 20 snaps or something like that. And he threw, I think he was the only one who threw a touchdown, but he still threw an interception amongst all those, amongst all those throws. And that Sanders was actually in there, and I think he threw maybe 9 snaps, had maybe 9 snaps, threw an interception. Their third string quarterback only had 4 snaps, 1 interception. So they're so going back to our team with that and just being able to know that, that there's control, that there's consistency, and there's also trust, because they're, like I said, they're given this staff is giving each guy an equal amount of opportunity to be able to prove themselves to be that starting, or as they put it, the best player.
Oh yeah. For the record, like having Kirk Cousins is just it's all good. Nothing but good things are going to come from it, from him. Working with Mendoza, kind of pushing Mendoza competitively to see who can win this starting quarterback job. And I mean, obviously the favorite is Kirk Cousins right now, just because, his pedigree, he knows Kubiak's system. He's one of the better veteran quarterbacks in the league has really. But the one thing I will say is that Mendoza, I mean, we know that, rookie quarterbacks, the Raiders have kind of stated that they would rather see, a veteran start out first. But the one thing is that when you're taking with the number 1 overall pick and with how good that Mendoza really was in college and how mature he looked as not only a quarterback, but a leader, that is really infectious. And it's just going to be interesting to see what he does the rest of training camp, to see what kind of looks they give him. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard for them not to give Mendoza a look at least some point this season, due to, how much upside he really has. But having Kirk Cousins as well, it kind of keeps Mendoza in check, and it's going to make Mendoza work even harder than he would if it was just him battling against Aiden O'Connell, kind of knowing that he would get that starting job. No, having Kirk Cousins, it's going to be a battle until the end. And even throughout the season, like let's say Kirk Cousins does start out, like it's going to be a battle throughout the season. Mendoza is going to be doing everything he can to learn from Kirk Cousins, and also kind of prepare himself to be the Raiders quarterback of the future.
Yeah, that's yeah, because like I said, Kirk Cousins is, I think he is key to the success of Mendoza, and really, and it is up to Mendoza too, because that was another statement that I believe it was Spytech that ended up putting it out there. He said that when this, and I'm actually beating up the quote on this one, but he had said something along the lines where it's up to Mendoza to show us what Mendoza can do, and it's something along that lines of what he was talking about. So, it's the faster that he picks up the play calling, the better in that he becomes more acclimated to the position of being able to take the ball under snap, and the faster that he develops a good relationship with the players, it's all going to be on him. And from what they're reporting in the OTAs, man, he is growing fast. He's growing
checking
fast.
Every box.
Yeah, checking every box.
Because he's not just like some run-of-the-mill rookie. Like he was the number 1 pick for a reason. And I get that some people say that, oh, well, this was a weaker QB class. Next year's QB class is where, it's going to be really crazy. But I don't necessarily buy all that hype. I mean, what more could he have possibly proven at college this past season? I mean, his team went undefeated. And, looking back at the draft, I mean, Indiana didn't even have that many players get drafted that high. I mean, they had Amari Cooper, they had that one other first-round pick, wide receiver, get drafted. And although he's a good talent, I mean, I think a lot of his value was driven directly from Mendoza being such a good quarterback at Indiana. So he's no average rookie. So I think that, monitoring what he does in camp is going to be huge, and he's going to give the Raiders every reason to believe that he's their guy moving forward. And yeah, Kirk Cousins, he'll be a good mentor as well. And like I've said before, he's the best possible bridge quarterback that I can think of actively in the NFL right now.
Right. And going back to what Chavez had said about it, we got a winning quarterback. That's what we got out of this draft. We didn't get the highest number thrower. We didn't get the fastest quarterback on his feet. The most elusive player. We got a winning minded quarterback. And I think it was Dan Orlovsky, former quarterback. He was like really trying to come down on Mendoza not being the best player in the draft. And there are a lot of people that were saying that he wasn't the best quarterback in the draft. I can even say that he was not the best quarterback in the draft. He was a good quarterback. He was probably amongst one of the great ones that came out of that draft, but he was the best fit for the Raiders right now, which is why they picked him. You know, he went undefeated in that last season with Indiana. They won the championship. I mean, obviously you saw the highlights of how hard he got into that touchdown.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing about it was that, yeah, in a lot of games during his college, his year, and I think it was the last year of his college season, he threw an interception in the beginning of the game. I believe he made a couple of mistakes where he was sacked behind the line. He did a lot of things to start the game off really rough, but then he smoothed it out. And at the end of the game, they won. And that's the kind of quarterback that we want to get. I don't care if he starts off sloppy. If it's the opposite of drinking alcohol, where they look ugly in the beginning and then they look great in the end, hey, then you know what? Then that's what it is, because I'll take that. All right. So let's go that direction. Okay. Yeah. He started off ugly. Hey, but you know what? A couple of shots down the line, boom. That ball's starting to look pretty. The ball's starting to look pretty. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you said, that play in the national championship where he dove for the end zone. I mean, that was literally a perfect example of what he does in order to get the team to win. I mean, he does whatever it takes to get the win. I'm sure that wasn't even the design play. He kind of did that off script because he knew that he had to put the team on his back in that exact position to win the game. And then I think also with him, I mean, his intangibles as well. I mean, what is he, like 6'5"? That's always intriguing to have in a franchise quarterback as well, being able to see over the offensive line and kind of be able to connect with his receivers at any point of the field. But yeah, just good stuff coming up for the Raiders for sure.
All right. So is anything else you want to, maybe a statement you want to make, a prediction for the OTAs coming up, or?
Yeah. I mean, I think that as the OTAs go on, building off this quarterback talk, I do think Mendoza is going to start getting some more looks with the first team reps, with the first team. And I think when the preseason does come around, I do think that he's going to get a look with the first team.
All right. To close out the show, Raider Nation, we talked OTAs, we talked coaching changes, and we talked about the identity this team is trying to build. Last year was full of confusion, inconsistency, and too many questions without answers. But this year, it feels like the Raiders are trying to create something different. More structure, more discipline, and a team that knows what it or who it wants to be. Now, it still has to show up on the field. OTA talk is cool, but, Raider Nation, we want results. We want a team that hits back, protects the quarterback, runs the ball with attitude, and plays like every snap means something. So as we close it out, the question is simple. Are the Raiders finally building a real identity, or are we just hearing another offseason story? We're going to keep watching it, keep the questions coming in, and keep cutting through the noise right here on the Sack Blackout podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share whenever you can, and always remember to black out the noise. I am the host and the vice president of the Black Hole Sacramento chapter, and we, along with our Raider analyst over here, Wyatt Redding. I want to thank you so much for joining up on the show, man. Have a great night, and to everybody out there in Raider Nation, black out the noise, baby.